WYFF News 4 starts right now.
Tracking the tropics as Hurricane Helene inches closer.
Helene brings flood and severe wind threats to our area overnight. I'll map it out for you town by town.
Georgia and the Carolinas in Helene's path. Heavy rain, high winds, and flooding already being felt in our region.
We know it's going to be a lot of water, probably more than some folks have seen, particularly in the upstate.
Officials warning everyone to stay safe.
If you do not need to travel, please stay off the roadways, especially in the foothills and in the mountains. Do not drive through floodwaters.
We have live team coverage tonight as we work to help keep you safe.
I've directed FEMA to work with the state partners to take proactive measures to ensure the communities in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, and other states have the support and the resources they need.
President Joe Biden speaking on Hurricane Helene today as the storm picked up steam in the Gulf of Mexico. The president declared emergencies for several southern states ahead of Helene's landfall.
Thanks for joining us at 10 for a special edition of WYFF News 4 as we begin our extended coverage of Hurricane Helene.
Hurricane Helene is near landfall right now along the Florida coast as a Category 4 storm. Heavy rain, high winds, and flooding being felt all across the southeast.
We have live team coverage tonight as we are tracking the impacts of Hurricane Helene as the storm hits our region.
But first, we go right to Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice with the latest track. Chris.
Nigel, Carroll, this is making landfall as we speak. That eye wall getting oh so close to making land. You got wind emergencies underway right in here as the core of the system moves through. Those winds have continued to increase up to landfall to now where it's at 140 miles per hour. That's probably going to be the official wind speeds at landfall west of Cross City right here as it continues to move up toward the north. Here's Port St. Joe. I mean, this is so close to Panama City, Port St. Joe. Griff and I were looking at that. It's just a bit to a jog to the east of where Hurricane Michael made landfall in 2019. Hurricane Helene stats 140 miles per hour, northeast winds, transportation-wise rather at 24 miles per hour. It's booking it in hurricane standards, and that pressure has bombed out to 939. This is now getting picked up, and it will slingshot our way. The new track has it as a Category 2 well inland, which means it's got some weakening to do before it gets here, and not much real estate to do it. We will very likely have hurricane force wind gusts in the upstate. We have not had that in years, folks. This kind of wind combined with this kind of rain is going to lead to widespread power outages, and now we're getting into some meaner bands. These bands are a little bit more fierce, each one that comes in, but here's a lull. It's likely to fill in. We're looking at this. It's probably going to fill in with some lighter to more moderate rain, but this batch moving through is kind of the first of the official outer bands of this system. We await more, looking toward the south and west right here in Greenville. Here's the new timeline. Moving toward the north, additional rainfall as we continue into the overnight right here, midnight and beyond. We're getting some rain in the western half of the area, but here comes 2 a.m. The winds are picking up. Still not much rain in Greenville at 3 a.m. By 4, that initial band's moving into Greenville. You've got some of these heavier bands moving into Greenwood, Abbeville, and Elberton, and boom, just like that, here comes the worst of the system. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. This is the core of the system just roaring across the area right here as it races off toward the north. This will be what causes the power outages. 70+ mile per hour wind gusts locally. Coming up, I'll map out the peak for your town and the time frame and just how much additional rain you will see.
Chris, thank you. Continuing our team coverage now with how conditions are looking in downtown Greenville. Tonight, Greenville police say because of the weather, Cleveland Park is closed.
We go to our Nate Stanley in Greenville with more. Nate.
Nigel, Carroll, I'm outside of Falls Park where we've been here all afternoon, and the rain has kind of come and gone as the day has progressed. Sometimes it is very heavy downpours. Other times, like right now, looking around, it isn't very heavy rain at all. Little rain at that. There's still some pooling along the street here from some of the rain earlier today. We've got some video of what Falls Park looks like just a few hours ago. The Reedy River absolutely surging full of the water. that was coming from the rain. We were just taking a trip down Falls Park not too long ago. Unfortunately, it is a little too dark right now for anybody to see anything there, but the river there is still making a lot of noise and still very, very active. People have been out tonight. Some people stopping at local restaurants, going to the bank, whatever it is that they're doing downtown, but still most of the people heeding that warning to not drive if you don't have to. It's not a very busy night along Main Street as you would expect on a Thursday night. So here's a man that we spoke to earlier today who was just out walking around. Here's what he had to say.
Tomorrow, I don't know if I can be out. My wife might have something to say about that because the winds are supposed to be picking up. So, but I am hopeful for some good weather on Saturday for the game.
And that was most of the people we spoke to today. They're preparing for what this storm will bring. They're preparing to hunker down at home. Obviously, we advise most of you guys to do that as well. Reporting in Greenville, Nate Stanley, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Nate. As Hurricane Helene approaches with heavy rain and wind, it can be more dangerous for people who don't have a place to go in our area.
Our Mark Whiteman is in Greenville County with more on this. Mark.
Yeah, hey guys, we are actually on that Greenville-Pickens County border right now at Crosswell First Baptist, where the rain is really coming in waves as we have seen it all across our area tonight. And we are here at Crosswell First Baptist. That's right off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road, right across from Greenville-Pickens Speedway, near that area where we are anticipating dangerous flood levels on the Saluda River. Already we have seen that river more than double the normal level. 2.5 feet is what it normally is. It's more than double that already and expected to reach near record highs by early tomorrow morning into that dangerous flood level territory. So to that end, the Greenville County Emergency Management, along with the American Red Cross, has opened a temporary shelter here at Crosswell First Baptist. They are offering a place to stay the night, to spend the night, a place to be safe and to be dry. They have cots and blankets, they have water and snacks, and they're offering this to anyone who feels they might be impacted by the storm, but particularly that area that we mentioned along the Saluda River near Highway 123, where we are really anticipating that water level to rise and be quite dangerous overnight and into the early hours tomorrow morning. Like I said, Crosswell First Baptist, where the American Red Cross says anyone who needs a place to stay tonight is welcome, and there is a place to stay here for you.
There were reports of flooding along the Saluda River, so they asked us to open a shelter here. So anybody who is going to be impacted by the storm or concerned about their safety during the storm are welcome to come, and they can stay here for the night until it's safe to return.
And as we were driving along Old Easley Road to get down that way, this is actually obviously a dimmer, more darkly lit area, so we did encounter some ponding in that area. And if you are coming to Crosswell First Baptist from that area, please be safe. Please be vigilant out there on the roads. An important note to pass along as well from the American Red Cross: you do not need to pre-register if you are looking for a place to stay tonight. If you feel you need to evacuate your home, you're worried about the flooding of the Saluda River or really anywhere else in the area on that Greenville-Pickens County border, you can get over here. You do not need to pre-register. You just need to come in, sign up, and there will be a place for you to stay the night. We will have much more coverage coming up throughout the evening, but for now, guys, I'll send things back to you.
Mark, thank you very much. We want to go up to Spartanburg County now as Duke Energy has trucks on standby.
We're joined now by Rashad Williams, who is there with more. Rashad.
You know, I heard Nate and Mark mention that the rain was kind of on and off in the areas where they are. I got to tell you, in Spartanburg, we've been dealing with an absolute downpour. My jacket is a different color. Well, I see I've got leaves on me from some of the trees. As we were driving around, we noticed some Duke Energy crews were parked, and I was wondering what they were up to, assuming that they were working to restore power in the area where we are. This is Vanderbilt Road. We are right off of Vanderbilt Road, and I do want to say we are a safe distance away. The Duke Energy crews let me know that there are 2 trees that they spotted that they suspect will come down in a matter of hours, depending on the weather conditions as it continues to pick up. Again, we are a safe distance away. So as of right now, it's a little too dark to see, so I'll describe it. The crews are up in buckets. They are working to chop down some of the limbs off of this tree, and I would assume that they are going to work to try to cut this tree down in pieces if they can. Again, I see right now they are cutting the limbs off of the tree, but if they're unable to cut the entire tree down, they are expecting 2 trees here on Vanderbilt Road to come down at some point throughout the night. As a precaution, we also noticed that Duke Energy blocked the road off. So at the moment they told us, hey, there's some dangers in this area. They parked one of their trucks in the road. We got a truck backing up here, but they parked their truck in the road. They blocked the road off, and they are rerouting traffic. So if you're driving near the Vanderbilt Road area, just know that you will have to take a detour. You will be rerouted if you're heading in this area. So again, no wind, but a lot of rain and a lot of standing water on the roads here in Spartanburg. So we'll continue to keep you updated in the next half hour.
Rashad, thank you. Let's go from Spartanburg County now to Anderson County.
And that's where Amaya Payton is with the very latest on what's happening there. I see trucks behind you as well, Maya.
Yes, Nigel and Carol, Anderson County within the past hour activated its Emergency Operations Center. Now, you may remember earlier at 4 o'clock, I was here at the Civic Center where I showed you Duke Energy had 2 rows of vehicles. But now you can see that has since changed. The increase speaking to the anticipated need of what they believe they will be responding to. Well, county leaders telling me they want everyone to stay inside, and that would make these crews and other responders' lives so much easier so they can focus on who will need help when things get worse. Well, take a look. We have video as 4 swift water teams headed out in case there is anyone they have to pull out from flooded areas. Well, I'm told the focus efforts will be in West Pelzer and Townsville. Anderson County leaders continue to warn. Take a listen.
Some places very likely will flood, especially around that Saluda River area. Right now, our EOC is about to sit at OPCON 2, which means it's not hitting its peak, but we're teetering on that edge of it being a major event.
I know Rashad showed you tree down in Spartanburg, and I showed you trees down here in Anderson County earlier. Well, that damage as well expected from county leaders to continue because trees can fall in an instant, they tell me. We'll talk more about this coming up. In Anderson County, I'm Maya Payton, WYFF News 4.
As we look at the latest computer model shows the eye getting close to us by 7 a.m. That could be the worst of the storm over the upstate. Coming up on Map Out where we go the rest of the night.
As we go to break, let's take a live look at Key West, Florida. This is in the opposite direction of where the storm is sitting in the panhandle of Florida. This is at the very southern tip. Here you see high seas there as well. A rainy night in Key West.
Live Super Doppler 4 alert weather as Helene is making landfall as we speak right now on the Gulf Coast of Florida as a strong Category 4 hurricane with winds at, get this, 140 miles per hour. It's an emergency down that way and going to be emergency type conditions all the way up through Georgia as this fierce storm moves to the north. Hard to believe that that's on the coast right here, right now, will be over top of our area by the time many of you are waking up tomorrow morning, okay? Hurricane Helene. 140 mile per hour winds. It is booking it toward the north-northeast by hurricane standards. We have had record-breaking rain today in many areas. Rivers are near record-breaking heights, and this is how much of the storm we have to go, okay? So we're talking about some areas, which I'll show you in a moment, that could be 10 feet above the previous record in Asheville. This is why the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service in Greer made that bold statement today. This could be the strongest and most impactful storm our area in the Western Carolinas has had in the modern era. You have to go back to 1916 to find worse flooding there in Asheville. Really, really significant. All right, so here comes the storm making landfall. This is part one of it. The wind is a big deal, yes, but here we go with the wind and the rain combo. All this starts coming up against the mountains. It reaches that wall and has nowhere to go, so it just kind of all falls out in one spot. The wind is a big component. This is going to be a really potent wind maker for us, more so than normal. In fact, hurricane warnings get all the way up toward metro Atlanta, okay? Here locally, we've got tropical storm warnings. Our gusts are going to be in excess of 60, 70 miles per hour. Sustained winds, that constant wind, about 30 to 40 miles per hour. Here's live Super Doppler 4. Boy, do we have a heavy downpour right now across Travelers Rest, Slater, Marietta, up through Caesars Head. That's a hard and heavy one. Then there's a bit of a lull. This is going to start to fill in at times, but between now and say 3 a.m., it slacks up a little bit. Then it comes in really fierce. Hendersonville, Columbus, Landrum, Travelers Rest seeing some of that heavier rain. Here's Greenville. a pretty big lull moving in. We got some drier air settling in. You can see that on our latest computer model by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. There's some rain west of Greenville. But here we go. By 4, that's when the bulk of the system's knocking on the southern part of our area's door. This is a brand new computer model that just came in. It shows by 5 o'clock, we've got some of those bands wrapping in. This could be tornadic in activity at times. 4, 5, 6 o'clock. In here comes that eye. This is the most fierce part of the storm here at 7 o'clock. Really rocking and rolling across the area right here. This would be the strongest part of the storm for us between 5, 6, 7 a.m. By 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the upstate's beginning to dry out. That eye going right into western North Carolina, Asheville to Hendersonville. Again, remember, we've had too much rain already. Here comes the pouring, just driving rain on top of all of that. And then by 10, 11 o'clock, there's not much rain falling across the area. It's still breezy. Let me show you the additional rainfall totals expected tonight. Now, again, remember, we have already reached record levels for totals and river levels. So additional rain, we're talking about from here on out, an additional 3 inches or so across the upstate. This is the problem area right here. These areas have already had nearly 10 inches of rain so far in the past 48 hours. Let me get in closer and show you those problem spots a little bit closer in here. Eastern Henderson County, Hickory Nut Gorge into Lake Lure, up through eastern Buncombe County, southern Yancey County, and then you go back here through Brevard. These areas could have an additional 6 inches of rain between now and tomorrow morning, which will send those creeks and streams and rivers that are already so high even higher, which could really settle in these valleys of Asheville, in particular the Swannanoa River. You go toward Biltmore Estate, right there at the entrance. That area reached the record flooding it's ever had in 1916. We're going to be about a foot above that record in 1916 is the current forecast. You also get to the French Broad River in Fletcher right here. Let me show you that because this is really eye-popping. This is a graph for the National Weather Service. NOAA's water service is here. Normally, the French Broad River sits at about 2 to 3 feet on a normal day. Right now, it sits at 17.2 feet. All right, so that's big in and of itself. Within a couple of feet of being record. That record set back in 2004. That was Francis and Ivan when it moved through. That's where we sit right now. Look at this. The forecast by tomorrow mid-morning, 30.5 feet. That's 10 feet above where we were in 2004. 10 feet above the record of 20 feet. That's incredible, folks. Just so devastating in that area. Here comes the winds. That's going to be a big component of this. Brand new computer model just came in, so you're seeing fresh data. By 4 o'clock, we have gusts up to 50. By 5 o'clock, those gusts are 70 plus miles per hour. Got a couple of 80s showing up here on our computer model. That's at 6 a.m. By 7 a.m., the 80s still hanging around the area. Folks, we don't get this kind of wind gust in our area. It just doesn't happen. This is really abnormal, and with all the rain that we've had, rain and wind combined will bring down trees. It's not going to last all day. In fact, by mid-morning, the rain's slacking up. It's some light to moderate rain, and then by the afternoon, the sun is shining after all that in the morning. So live Super Doppler for alert weather tomorrow. 75 will be the high. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, exactly what we'd want to see in a situation like this. Drier weather to allow those streams and creeks that are already going to be high to slowly start to recede.
Chris, thank you.
Continuing our team coverage now with how conditions are looking in downtown Greenville.
We go to Nate Stanley in downtown Greenville with more. Nate.
Nigel, Carol, Chris just mentioned the wind starting to pick up, and as he was speaking about that, I, before he even mentioned it, noticed that we're feeling a little bit more wind here within the last hour. We're still here at Falls Park, and we mentioned the Reedy River and its surge all afternoon. I'm gonna have our photographer pan over here so you can see it continues to grow power here. The Reedy River continues to surge here at Falls Park. You can hear it, you can feel it as the water is just rushing through here. There's still a couple people off to our left just coming by, walking along the bridge here, taking it all in. That's been the majority of the afternoon for people here as the rain has been pretty off and on. We drove around downtown Greenville and for the most part didn't see too much flooding or road closures there. This has been the majority of the impact that we have seen so far, and you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it. We will continue to bring you updates from downtown Greenville all night long. Reporting from Falls Park, Nate Stanley, WYFF News 4.
From downtown Greenville to downtown Atlanta, take a look here at a live look from Atlanta's Centennial Park, where the city of Atlanta is getting ready for a lot of heavy wind, heavy rain as Helene heads this way. As Hurricane Helene approaches with heavy rain and wind, it can be more dangerous for people who don't have a place to go in our area.
Imagine not having shelter in something like this. Our Mark Whiteman is at a shelter near the Greenville County-Pickens County line.
Yeah, hey Nigel and Carol, we're actually at Crosswell First Baptist. That's right off Highway 123, right across from the Greenville-Pickens Speedway. It's off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road. And Greenville County Emergency Management, along with the American Red Cross, has opened a shelter here that will be open throughout the course of this storm. It is quiet right now. There's no rain in our area at the moment, but we are anticipating the flood levels of the Saluda River to rise to very dangerous levels as early as tomorrow morning, approaching a near record high by as early as 8 a.m. That's according to NOAA. So the American Red Cross has opened this shelter at Crosswell First Baptist. They have cots, they have blankets, they have food and snacks, a place to stay tonight. If you're worried about your home, you lose power, you're worried about having to evacuate because of those encroaching flood levels, the American Red Cross wants you to know you have a place to stay here. You do not need to pre-register. All you need to do is show up. We have seen a couple families show up already, but all you do need to do is show up, sign up, and you have a place to stay tonight and throughout the course of this storm. We'll have much more coming up in just a little while, but for now, guys, I'll send things back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Here's a live look at the satellite and radar. Look at the stretch of alerts from Florida to Georgia to the Carolinas. Tornado concerns, flood concerns, and wind concerns. I'll track Helene for your town straight ahead.
Live, local, breaking news. This is WYFF News 4.
We continue our live team coverage tonight at 10:30, tracking the impacts of Hurricane Helene as the storm hits our region.
First, we go to Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice with the latest updates on Hurricane Helene.
This is a wide-reaching storm, Nigel and Carol, as it's making its landfall as we speak. Look at the tropical storm and the tornado watches that are in place for the East Coast. We've actually got tornado warnings. One tornado was on the ground near Richmond Hill, Georgia, moving north toward Pooler, Georgia. You got another warning right here just outside of Bluffton near Hilton Head Island. There are flood warnings basically across the entire area, Metro Atlanta through Greenville. As we turn on the tornado threats, we do unfortunately have a medium level 2 risk of tornadoes tonight as those bands whip into the area. They do have rotation with them. Each green box here indicates active flash flooding where rivers, creeks, streams are spilling their banks. That's why we tell you, if you don't have anywhere to be, it's time to hunker down and just be there until mid-morning or lunchtime tomorrow, and then you can get out and about carefully, right? These downpours that coming in are now officially the outer bands of this hurricane moving through, and they are getting a little bit more fierce each band that goes through. You'll kind of hear the pitter-patter of the rain on your roof and say, hey, is that rain? Because it's really heavy. And that's what's coming our way round by round right here. Another one moving into Lounsville right here. We got a heavy band moving into North Carolina, southern Henderson County right here. That's just adding to all of these green boxes here, which are flood warnings all across the area here. Some of these areas have had 12, 15 inches of rain already. We've got those flash flood warnings for Five Forks, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, Pickens, Greenwood, you name it. Our area has flooding as we speak. New advisory. Winds are at 140 miles per hour. It's making landfall right now. Then it's beelining it for our area. The brand new track put to Cat 2 hurricane into central Georgia, where it has to weaken before it gets to us. And there's not much real estate before it does. Coming up, I'll map out impacts to your town with wind and rain.
Well, as Chris has been saying, the worst of the storm, as we just saw, still on the way.
Power crews are already out, ready to quickly get to work. Our Rashad Williams is in Spartanburg County with a look at conditions there. Rashad?
Yeah, the worst of the storm is still on its way, but you can say we're getting a bit of a breather right now. When I say that, I mean the rain has slacked up a little bit, so it's nice to not get downpoured on. But I do want to show you what's going on here. We are at Vanderbilt Road in Spartanburg. Duke Energy crews are repositioning. We're at a safe distance away. They've been out here for about an hour now, and we were told by some of the crews here that they are currently working on 2 trees that they noticed across the way. They noticed those trees, and they said that those trees will possibly come down within the next few hours as Helene moves in. So the bucket has been going up and down. I'm not sure if you can see that because it is dark out here. But again, several crew members out here on the ground. We just noticed 3 or 4 Duke Energy trucks leave this area. They said they were headed to another location for the same reason, for trees, and this was expected. Our weather team, they've been saying all week, flooding down power lines and down trees is expected, and we're seeing it right now in real time. I also want to show you something else that we noticed as we were driving into Spartanburg. There's a lot of water on the sides of the roads here. This is like a kiddie pool almost. Could stick my whole foot in that, but a lot of standing water near the curbs and also in the roadways. So if for some reason you have to get in your car and drive, make sure that you take your time, but it's always suggested turn around, don't drown, because you just don't know how deep the water can be. We'll check back in about 15 minutes here in Spartanburg.
Great advice, Rashad. Thank you. And power crews are staging in Anderson County, getting ready to respond to any outages there.
Our Maya Payton is in Anderson County with more on how conditions are right now. Maya.
Yes, Nigel and Carol, flooding, down power lines, heavy trees falling. That's what first responders here are anticipating. They're also calling it a long night ahead. Now here at the Civic Center, you can see Duke Energy already preps in place. They've got many crews here, also many trucks. Since I've been out here, more have come out here as well, and county leaders are basically telling people to stay at home. They are saying that it's going to be a long night and it's best if people stay at home, anticipating a lot of power outages and flooding. Anderson County's seen about 5 inches already and is anticipated to see even more, maybe 6 to 8 inches. This is according to the Emergency Management Division, which leads again to falling trees. County leaders explain. Take a listen.
I know that some people have seen it firsthand where all of a sudden it just falls down and it was right there 1 minute and now blocking the entire street, or goodness forbid hitting someone. And because of all the rain that's just not letting up, it's saturating the ground so much. So really that's not a time to let your guard down.
Well, county leaders, despite the warning that people will get about staying at home, they will still choose to come outside anyways. And she says, if that is you, then know that many of the neighborhoods and streets in Anderson County do not have street lights. So you have to be careful and look for flash flooding as well. I hope you guys be safe tonight, and please do not leave. In Anderson County, I'm Maya Payton, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Maya. After a day of steady rain, the Reedy River is running high tonight, and the falls are putting on a spectacular show.
Yes, it is. We go to our Nate Stanley in Greenville. Nate, how do things look right now?
I think spectacular show is a good way to put it, especially since the Lion King is in town today. But this is the show I prefer to watch. Look at the Reedy River here at Falls Park, absolutely surging with water. Earlier this afternoon, we talked about how the water was brown in color, but now with these rapids getting as strong as they are now, you can see it has turned to this white color. Also, if we look to our left, we had mentioned the wind earlier, not too long ago, how that has also seemed to have picked up here in the last hour or so. That is now moving a couple of the trees, a couple of the branches down closer to the river. In terms of rain, in the last 30 minutes, we haven't seen too much rain in terms of added rain that we've been seeing all day. People have been out watching. People have been out here all afternoon taking pictures of the falls and seeing what this river has come to. We are going to stay here all afternoon and all evening and provide you updates as they come tonight. Reporting in Greenville, Nate Stanley, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Nate. Because of concerns over flash flooding and high rivers, shelters are opening up in the upstate.
Our Mark Whiteman is in Greenville County at one of those shelters. Mark.
Yeah, hey, Nigel and Carol, we're right on that Greenville County, Pickens County border at Crosswell First Baptist. That's right off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road. It's near the Greenville-Pickens Speedway. And the American Red Cross has set up a temporary emergency shelter here for the duration of the storm. Right now, at this moment, we're not experiencing any rain. It's quiet, but we have had moments and bouts of really severe sideways rain since we have been here, and that is of particular concern for folks in this area that live near the Saluda River. Already we're seeing those river water levels rise more than double the normal level. Usually it's about 2.5 feet. It's more than double that already, and NOAA is anticipating and expecting those water levels to rise to major flood levels by early tomorrow morning and near record highs. So if you are in the area, and even if you're not, if you are concerned about flooding near your home, if you're concerned about losing power, if you are concerned about your safety, the American Red Cross has opened this temporary shelter. Again, it is at Crosswell First Baptist. They have cots, and they have blankets, they have water, and they have snacks. Most importantly, they have a place for you to spend the night, to stay safe if you're worried about being in your home right now. And it is worth noting, of course, we came on down here from Old Easley Road. We encountered some ponding. That's a darker area. So if you are coming down that way, please stay vigilant out on those roads, because as we continue through this evening, we're going to see those conditions get even more dangerous and unsafe on the roads. But again, if you were concerned about where you are, the American Red Cross has set up this temporary shelter where they have room for everyone. We've seen just a few folks come already, but as the water really continues to pick up on the river and the rains continue to come, we are anticipating seeing more people here. So if you're looking for a place to stay, Crosswell First Baptist, the American Red Cross, has a shelter open for you here. We will continue to bring you updates throughout the evening, but for now in Greenville, I'm Mark Whiteman, WYFF News 4 Sports.
Thank you, Mark. Here's a live look at Jacksonville Beach. This, of course, on the Atlantic coast of Florida. As you can see, this gives an illustration of how wide the reach of this hurricane is. The camera's shaking there. It looks like it's been raining throughout the evening. We are tracking Helene after this break. Right now in our area, Duke Energy is reporting only a few hundred outages.
But crews are ready should those numbers start to rise. Our Rashad Williams is in Spartanburg County. Rashad, you are seeing some of those crews at work, or at least you were.
Yeah, I'm seeing it right now, and I'm about to show you, but I want to explain. Vanderbilt Road here in Spartanburg is closed. Duke Energy has the road blocked off. There are several crews here right now. Take a look at it. If you can see this right now in real time, this tree is leaning to the right. This is a big lean here. We are at a safe distance, so I want to reiterate that, but we are at a spot where we can see. We got a nice vantage point. There's a crew member in the bucket, and the sounds of chainsaws right now going off, and we're going to stay on this shot. You can see some of the limbs falling down. Duke Energy told us that 2 trees over in this area, there it is, boom, a big limb falling down right into the road that they blocked off. Duke Energy told us when we rolled up, they said there are 2 trees that they suspected would fall down as Helene made its way in a little bit later. So they said, why wait when we can go ahead and do some damage control now? So again, crews in this bucket with the chainsaw, they are cutting some of the big limbs, I would say skinning this tree almost. You can see some of the progress they've made. And there's another limb coming down right now. There it is. So again, crews working hard here, again, not only to restore power, but to try to work on getting some of the trees out of the way that they suspect will fall down as Helene makes its way here. We're going to continue to stay a safe distance away and monitor what's going on here. But for now, if you need to come through this area of Vanderbilt Road, it's going to be a long time before you're able to get through. So I suggest you find a different route. But hopefully you don't need to be outside. Stay inside. Stay on top of our coverage. Our weather team, our anchors, our reporters, we're all working as hard as we can to keep you safe and keep you informed. We'll check back in soon.
Rashad, thank you. You are looking live at the southernmost point in the continental United States, down in Key West. You can see the waves crashing over where the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico meet.
Landfall happening right now. A powerful 140-mile-per-hour Cat 4 hurricane. Next sights set on Georgia and the Carolinas. Landfall happening right now with Helene in Florida right now. A strong Category 4 hurricane. Look at the power of this storm. Let's zoom into the eye right here as it's making landfall. Look at the lightning around that eye. 140 mile per hour sustained winds. This is a monster. Safe to say it's made landfall. That eye wall now moving onshore as we speak. 140 mile per hour sustained winds moving north-northeast now at 24 miles per hour. As this pulls to the north very quickly, it's going to lead a path of destruction in its path. Because of those winds being so strong and because it's moving so quickly, those winds remain intact so far inland. Cat 2 here, Cat 1 somewhere in here. Weakening out of a Cat 1 somewhere in here, but I'm telling you, it's so close to being a Category 1 hurricane in our area and metro Atlanta that we're going to have problems up and down that. That's why you have alerts, tropical storm warnings. I've never seen this. All of Georgia, all of South Carolina, all of western North Carolina with hurricane warnings getting one county away from metro Atlanta. Hurricane warnings. This is a powerful monster moving inland very quickly. We're in a little bit of the lull that I was telling you about that'll be really now through about 3 a.m. from the heaviest of the rain. But each of these bands that do make it into the area are going to be really a lot more stout each band. We'll have to watch these. There's the potential some of them begin to rotate at some point into the overnight hours and give us the threat, at least, for an isolated tornado. Downtown Greenville in a bit of a lull, but look at those low clouds. That's the problem with tropical systems. They have low clouds, and if they begin to rotate, it doesn't take a lot for it to drop down a couple hundred feet versus if it was a normal day where it's way up in the sky. All right, so let's map it out for you. Brand new computer model, 1 a.m. Here it comes. We're in that lull where there is some rain, but it's not picking up until we get to about 4 a.m. 4 a.m. is when Greenwood, Abbeville, the winds are starting to roar a little bit, and that heaviest rain starting to push on through. 6 a.m., we've got very heavy rain. The strongest of the winds are on top of us at this point. By 7 a.m. on Friday, again, very heavy rain, very strong winds. That eye gets very close to our area, almost right on top of us here. And as we look at this rain, by 9 o'clock, the bulk of it's pushing out of the upstate into the mountains. The winds are still so strong, but by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it's gone. I mean, it's in Tennessee and to Kentucky by then. That's how fast this thing's moving, from landfall to Kentucky by the time many are waking up. How about that? All right, so additional rain. Today, we've already broken records in Asheville for the most amount of rain ever recorded in a 3-day stint. How about that? And we still have all this to go for. 4 more inches in Asheville. And look at this southern and eastern facing slope of the mountains here. That's where we're going to have some serious problems, okay? All of us could certainly have flooding into the overnight hours, but it's these areas that are going to see an additional 6 to 12 inches of rain. This is not a snow forecast. This is a rain forecast, folks. And again, we already had record-breaking river levels in Asheville. Just for some examples here, Swannanoa River there at Biltmore, right there at the entrance. Big problems. I mean, we're getting within a foot above record levels of the Swannanoa there in Biltmore. You know that floods on a bad thunderstorm day. This is going to be significant, folks. A 22-foot river height there at Swannanoa. Let's talk about the French Broad River. This is going to be an issue from Asheville to Brevard. It's going to be a situation where a normal day, 3 feet is what the French Broad is at. Right now, it sits at about 17.5 feet. By tomorrow morning and tomorrow midday, 30.5 feet. The record was set back in 2004 with Hurricanes Francis and Ivan when they came through. Devastating flooding for the Broad River and Chimney Rock, for the Swannanoa, for French Broad. That was at 20.1 feet. So we're talking about a 10-foot difference in the old record and today's new record. I mean, we're not just breaking the record, we're shattering it tonight. That's the concern with this storm. You have to go back to 1916 to find river levels and rainfall totals this high in western North Carolina. 1916, folks. This is how unheard of this type system is for our area. Many of us won't see a system like this in our lifetime again. All right, wind gusts here, 70 miles per hour at 5 a.m. That's the concern. Not only is it a big rainmaker, you add in the wind to this that's abnormally powerful because of how fast this system's moving north. Power outages are going to be a concern. In fact, 80s are showing up on our model for possibilities through 6, 7 a.m. And then by 8, 9 o'clock, this is pulling toward the north, and we've got rough weather slowly starting to come down around 9, 10, 11 o'clock. Still breezy the rest of the day, so as you're cleaning up your yards, your mess, know that the trees that have been just abused all night, still have the potential to come down in these type winds. Even though they're 30, 35 miles per hour, they could come down. So the rain's not going to be all day. Mid-morning is, off and on, quite heavy at times. But then as we go through lunchtime, some showers, and then the sun is out. The sun returns tomorrow. That's how fast the system's in and out of here. So some morning severe wind and rain, high 75. The weekend's looking very nice, very fall-like, just what we need following a tropical system to help us dry out, as we'll see sunshine and temperatures that'll be in the 70s in the next week. Low temperatures in the 60s. Western North Carolina, morning severe wind and rain. I'll add in landslides is a big concern in the mountains. When you get the rain that we're talking on those southern and eastern facing slopes of the mountains, problems are going to occur.
Thank you, Chris. President Joe Biden has approved emergency declarations for Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina ahead of Hurricane Helene.
Washington correspondent Jackie DeFusco was at the White House earlier today to explain the impact of that declaration.
Well, the White House says that these emergency declarations unlock federal resources to help respond to the storm. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell says that more than 1,100 personnel across the federal government are supporting preparedness efforts so far, and others are ready to pivot quickly if needed. Criswell says that they have deployed search and rescue teams, debris removal, and power restoration crews, plus supplies like food, water, generators, and tarps. She tells us FEMA is bracing for a multi-state impact across the Southeast.
I think we're going to see a lot of power outages. We're going to see significant amounts of debris, but we're going to see flash flooding in the Appalachia. And so all of this is going to have life safety implications. And so making sure we have all of those people in place to support them.
Administrator Criswell also underscored the seriousness of Hurricane Helene and urged people who are in the storm's path to listen to the advice of local officials to either evacuate or shelter in place. She's expected to travel to Florida tomorrow to survey the damage. Reporting at the White House, I'm Jackie DeFusco.
As we go to break, let's take a live look at Atlanta Centennial Park. Atlanta getting ready for near hurricane strength winds and rain. Both South Carolina and North Carolina's attorneys general announced today the state's price gouging law is in effect ahead of Hurricane Helene. While prices are expected to rise due to the storm, consumers are asked to be on the lookout for any businesses appearing to take advantage of the situation through price gouging of food, gasoline, lodging, and other items. You are asked to note the time, place, address, and name of the gas station or business. Note the price you paid and any prices nearby with same information. Take pictures and send all the information to the state attorney general's office.
In South Carolina, some animal interstate transport requirements have been suspended due to Helene. According to the director of Clemson's Livestock Poultry Health, South Carolina will take in animals from Florida and Georgia with the threat of the bird flu among some livestock. Officials say those animals are still required to follow a federal rule that mandates testing before being moved.
As we continue to track Hurricane Helene, you can always turn to WYFF4.com and our mobile app. There you can find the latest track, models, and rain total predictions from our weather team. You can also see a full list of school closings and e-learning days ahead for our region.
Thank you for joining us for the news at 10.
WYFF News 4 at 11 starts right now.
Live, local, breaking news. This is WYFF News 4 at 11.
Here comes the storm system. Helene making landfall and now moving north. Coming up, I'll show you impacts town by town.
But just not often to see it running like this.
Heavy flooding across the upstate and western North Carolina as rivers start to overflow. We continue to track the impacts of Hurricane Helene.
Flashing lights and the sounds of chainsaws here in Spartanburg as Duke Energy crews work to not only restore power, but they are working to chop down some trees they say run the risk of falling as Helene makes its way here.
I've directed FEMA to work with the state partners to take proactive measures to ensure the communities in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, and other states have the support and the resources they need.
President Joe Biden speaking on Hurricane Helene today as the storm picked up steam in the Gulf of Mexico. The president declared emergencies for several southern states ahead of Helene's landfall.
Thank you for joining us at 11 for a special edition of WYFF News 4 as we continue our extended coverage of Hurricane Helene.
The storm made landfall in Florida tonight at about 10:45 as a Category 4 storm. Heavy rain, high winds, and flooding are being felt all across the southeast.
So we have live team coverage tonight as we are tracking the impacts of Hurricane Helene as the storm hits our region.
First, we go to Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice with the latest track.
Yeah, the storm system continues just to be a beast down toward the south. It's making landfall right now. Look at the tornado alerts in the low country of South Carolina. These bands that are going to come in are going to give us that threat. In fact, we're under a tornado watch in the southern parts of the upstate, including Lawrence, Greenwood, Abbeville counties. And as we move forward, we're going to have to watch that threat. Heavy rain, in addition to this severe threat, which has us in the level 2 medium risk for tornadoes, will need to be watched. And these bands that come in will progressively get a little bit more fierce. One rolled through, here comes another one in Greenwood and Lawrence rolling on in, and each one that comes through will possess a little bit more wind and a little bit more torrential of the rain. So Hendersonville to Brevard to Columbus seeing some heavy rain. Each one of these green boxes, which at this point basically is the entire area, presents flash flooding. Our creeks, our streams are to record levels here in western North Carolina, including the Swannanoa, the French Broad River, and the Broad River at Lake Lure and Chimney Rock. Farther south, we've got flooding happening right now across the northern part of the upstate with additional rain on the way. Latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center has winds sustained at 140 miles per hour. It's made landfall. Now it's making its way up toward the north. As we look at the latest track, which just came out from the National Hurricane Center because the box is a little kind of upset, if you will. 65 mile per hour sustained winds over Atlanta, Georgia, which puts us a little bit lower than that, probably 40 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts even higher. This thing's going to race our way and bring those strong winds into our neck of the woods. The hardest time frames are 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and through about 7 or 8 a.m. Coming up, I'll map out what you'll expect in your town and the new time frame for you.
Chris, thank you. Continuing coverage of our breaking news, a day of steady rain with Hurricane Helene still hours away.
Greenville's Cleveland Park is closed because of the weather and that rising river level. We go to our Nate Stanley in Greenville. And Nate, you're there keeping an eye on the Reedy River.
That's correct. And standing right now on Main Street, the rain has calmed down. We're in a bit of a lull right now, but we do have video, as you mentioned, of Reedy River and what that has looked like today. Just surging full of water earlier this afternoon along the rapids there at Falls Park. People were out today still with rain jackets, umbrellas, taking in that river, taking in the weather today. As I mentioned, the rain has been up and down. It's been on and off. Right now we're in and off, so some people are coming out, getting to their cars while the rain is down. We met a couple just a few minutes ago who drove from Idaho down to Atlanta and then Atlanta to Greenville. They said that driving from Atlanta to Greenville, they saw a lot of wrecks, a lot of the weather impacting the travel there. I spoke with a family earlier today from Ohio. They had driven down for a football game this weekend. They say that they're going to hunker down and that the weather actually changed their travel plans today. Here's what they had to say.
And we looked at the storm and said either come in this morning or wait till Saturday. We figured we'd be here for the storm, that'd be okay. So we got up early, drove here, got here around noon, and what a neat town. I hope I get a little more time to check out Greenville.
And we obviously hope that he has a good time in Greenville as well as everybody else here. Nigel, Carol?
Nate, it is 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. Tell me, are a lot of businesses along Main Street open? I know I saw a car drive past you a little while ago. Are people out?
So people are definitely out. There are definitely some cars, but as you mentioned, for Thursday night, not as many people as you would expect if the weather wasn't what it was today. We had seen, as I mentioned, people coming in and out of local bars and restaurants that were closing at this point at a normal time, but in terms of the weather impacting them closing early, does not seem like that has impacted much. People heeding the warnings of if you don't have to go out tonight, if you don't have to be on the roads, do not be out. Reporting in Greenville, Nate Stanley, WYFF News 4.
Nate, thank you very much. Now, some folks live in low-lying areas, and there are concerns over flash flooding, high rivers, so shelters are opening up in the upstate.
Mark Whiteman is in Greenville County, right at the Greenville-Pickens County line, really, at one of those shelters. Mark.
Yeah, hey, Nigel and Carol, you guys just mentioned it. We're at Crosswell First Baptist, right on that Greenville-Pickens line. We have seen a few folks coming and going this evening, and we just heard Chris discuss the record levels of flooding in western North Carolina. Certainly the Saluda River above Old Easley Road expected to get near record levels overnight and into the early hours tomorrow morning. That's right along Highway 123. And to that end, Emergency Management Services in Greenville County, along with the American Red Cross, have opened this temporary shelter. Again, it's at Crosswell First Baptist off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road, very close to the Greenville-Pickens Speedway if you're trying to get a frame of where we are in the area. And we are dealing with, right now, quite a bit of calm. But as we've heard discussed all night long, this is a fast-moving storm, so please don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. We are anticipating these rivers reaching high levels, emergency levels of flood, and certainly near record levels overnight. So to that end, we are here at this shelter where there is a place to stay if you are concerned, if you feel you might need to evacuate your home tonight, if you're worried about electricity or just your own safety. The American Red Cross wants you to know there is a safe place for you here. There are cots, there are blankets, there's water, there's snacks, there is a place for you to spend the night, a place that will be open throughout the course of the storm to ride it out. The American Red Cross wants you to know there is a place for you here.
There were reports of flooding along the Saluda River, so they asked us to open a shelter here. So anybody who is going to be impacted by the storm or concerned about their safety during the storm are welcome to come, and they can stay here for the night until it's safe to return.
Not a lot of rain in the area right now, but as we were driving down here, we did experience some ponding. Obviously, it's a little bit darker on Old Easley Road, so if you are coming that way, please stay vigilant. Please stay safe on those roads. And an important reminder, you do not need to pre-register. You can just come on down, sign up here, and there will be a place for you to stay. We'll have much more coming up, but for now in Greenville, I'm Mark Whiteman, WYFF News 4.
Mark, thank you very much. We understand that Duke Energy has a lot of crews in place, ready to go when and if needed, and some of them have started work early.
That's right, and our Rashad Williams is out there with some of them right now in Spartanburg County. Rashad.
Yeah, I got to be honest, my heart's racing pretty fast right now. I would say about a minute ago, we heard an explosion, and this sounded like fireworks going off right behind us as crews continued to work. We all jumped and we looked, and then all of a sudden, the power came on. So the lights were out in this area, homes without power. The street light was off here. Now you can see the street light is on, so it's giving us a little bit better view as to what we're seeing. So right across the street here, as crews are working, we showed you that tree last half hour that they were in the bucket. They were chopping that tree down. There were 2 trees they were concerned about falling as Helene makes its way closer. That tree is completely gone, and the last piece of it we heard fall into a creek that is right over in this area. It fell in there, but I want to commend the work that some of the Duke Energy crews are doing out here. This is a dangerous job. As some of the tree parts were coming down, we saw crew members scattering, trying to dodge those parts. We heard some of them hitting the trucks that are parked there. And I want to make a note, Vanderbilt Road obviously is still closed as crews are continuing to wrap up. Some of the trucks left, they're headed to a different destination, but it has been a wild night here in Spartanburg from some of the things that we've seen. Just a glimpse, again, of some of the work that Duke Energy and the crews go through as they not only prepare for storms, but as the storms get here, the work that they have to do. So we're going to continue to bring you coverage here on a street that now has lights in Spartanburg.
Rashad, thank you. We are seeing storm damage tonight in Anderson County.
And our Maya Payton is live in Anderson County with more on the damage there. Maya.
Yes, Nigel and Carol, Concord Avenue has felt the impact. I'm going to show you just here below the road end sign. You can see the tree has been uprooted and fallen straight across. Now, sadly, lights are not on our side right here, but I'm going to try to paint a picture. If I start from right here, even though it begins further down, I'll walk clear across and you'll see how big this tree is, blocking both sides of the road. The county has blocked this area off. I've seen cars try to make their way through here there's 4 entryways onto this street. People have had to turn around, find another alternative route to get to wherever they're going. A reminder to stay inside because, like county leaders told you earlier, a tree can fall at a moment's notice. This is just an example of what will happen with strong winds and a saturated ground. It's likely to get worse as time goes on. So just keep that in mind as you're making your way out.
The worst time is around midnight, 2 a.m. If you've ever been in a storm, especially in the south where there's not many street lights, it can be scary, especially when those trees start to pick up with the wind. You're seeing that flash flooding and maybe you miss a turn and next thing you know, you're off the side of the road.
Well, I mentioned lights earlier. Take a look around. Very little street lights. I think there's one across there. You can't even see it. But again, speaks to the areas that do not have that. So if it's not a must to come outside, you guys, do not do it. We have more damage to get to here in Anderson County, and hopefully we'll show you that just ahead. In Anderson County, I'm Maya Payton, WYFF News 4.
As we look outside of Greenville, in a bit of a lull right now, but more heavy rain moving in from the south. Coming up, we'll map out the timing for your town.
Let's give you a live look now at Jacksonville Beach, northern Florida. Right now, the eye is over pretty much from all of North Florida, heading right up Interstate 75 into Georgia, from the east side of Jacksonville Beach all the way west to Panama City. Right now, feeling the brunt of this hurricane.
Wind gusts are picking up across the southeast here as we got 20-25 mile per hour winds that are gusting higher at times. Let me show you what's happening locally as we're mapping out our wind gusts. We're starting to see them pick up. We got 20 mile per hour gusts peppering the board here. This will continue to be the case now that Helene has made landfall and making its way up toward the north. As we look at future wind gusts, they're going to get higher as the day goes on. Hey, we got a confirmed tornado on the ground in northern Florida right there, about to cross over into South Georgia. And that's going to be par for the course with this system as it moves in very, very powerfully. Tornadoes are going to be possible around this circulation. And the current situation has winds at 140 miles per hour. Made landfall is a strong Category 4. That eye crossing over right now as we speak onto land here in Florida. Now it's got its sights set on Georgia, then South Carolina, then North Carolina, all while we're sleeping tonight. That's why we got to watch this so closely. 65 mile per hour winds as it's due west of us. That's prompted hurricane warnings up to one county away from metro Atlanta. Tropical storm warnings for every single county in the state of South Carolina. And we've got tornado warnings to talk about just south of us. Each band that comes in is going to progressively get a little bit more potent and severe across the area. We're going to have the rain pick up, be heavier. We're going to have those winds pick up as well. You can see up through Asheville and Hendersonville, it's really coming down hard and heavy. Greenville in that lull right now. It's not going to last long, though. The new computer model here takes us through 4 a.m. That's when the winds are at their highest across the area. 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Here's 7. That main band of that outer eye wall on top of us, that's the most potent of the winds rolling through the area at that same time. It's rolling toward the north at 8, 9 o'clock. That eye has now pushed into North Carolina by 9. Still very, very windy across the upstate. 50, 60 mile per hour gusts. By 10 o'clock, those gusts are simmering down just a bit through 11. The rain's done across a good bit of the upstate, but all that rain that had previously fallen in the past couple hours, finding their way to the streams and creeks, and they're going to begin to rise, and rapidly so for many. Let me show you where we are and where we go into the overnight hours. Additional rain. Now keep in mind, many areas of western North Carolina have already shattered records for the day. Asheville, an additional 4 inches will be possible, an additional 6 inches in Hendersonville. That's on top of the record-breaking. We've never had this much rain in a 40-hour to 3-day time frame across Asheville and Hendersonville. You add in this additional rain, that's going to send in those creeks and streams that are already at high level levels to even higher levels. An example of that, massive flooding. Massive. That's not a word we use lightly. The French Broad River at Fletcher, near the airport in Asheville, normally sits at 3 feet. Right now it sits at 17.5 feet. Forecast to get to 30 feet. Just for perspective here, the old record was set back in 2004 of 20 feet. So we're talking 10 feet above the record. Not only just breaking the record, but shattering it. Let's talk about the wind speeds too, because you add in that to the saturated soil. Folks, if you've had trees come down on your property that get close to your home at any given time, there's a good chance it's going to happen with this system again too. If you're vulnerable to that type thing. 4 a.m. we've got gusts up to 50 miles per hour. By 5 a.m. they're pushing 70 miles per hour. 6, 7, 8 o'clock we've got a couple of 80s showing up here on our model. That's as the eye goes just west of us. And then this continues to be a problem through 8 o'clock. We've got gusts up to 60 to 70 miles per hour. Folks, just from perspective here, we don't get that type of wind in our area very often. That is significant wind gusts across the area, and trees and power outages will be a widespread problem. As we look at the day tomorrow, that wind and rain is going to be with us for the first part of the morning, but turning into more some spotty showers, and then the sun actually comes out after lunch. So it's as fast as it moves in, it moves out. So the 4-day looks like this. Morning severe wind and rain, 75 degrees. Sunshine begins Saturday, Sunday, Monday, exactly what we want to see in a forecast like this, where things begin to dry out and those rivers begin to recede slowly but surely going into the weekend and the next week. We'll have to watch that very closely.
Continuing coverage of our breaking news tonight, Hurricane Helene making its way toward the Carolinas.
The worst of the storm still to come after we've already seen hours and hours of steady rain. We go to our Nate Stanley in Greenville. And Nate, the river running high and strong.
That's right, Nigel. We have an alternate look from the one that we had just a short while ago. This is the Reedy River right above Falls Park, and as you can see, the water almost at the riverbanks here. The water continuing to grow here. We showed you the rapids just a little ways down there, and that has kind of been the story all day today. There is a gauge from the USGS that's about 4 miles down the river. Normally that gauge reads at about just under 1 foot for river depth. It is now reading up over 5 feet. So the Reedy River continuing to surge here, continuing to fill with water from today. Right now, not raining as much. We will continue to bring you updates from here all night. Reporting in Greenville, Nate Stanley, WYFF News 4.
The American Red Cross has opened emergency shelters across the upstate, including one right here at the Greenville-Pickens border. We've got an update on what you need to know if you are looking for a place to stay tonight, coming up on the other side of the break.
Just think of the amount of rain we have already seen, and much, much more is on the way. Storm shelters are open in the area tonight.
Our Mark Whiteman is near one of those shelters. It's near the Pickens County, Greenville County line. Mark?
Yeah, hey, Nigel and Carol, we're at Crosswell First Baptist. That's off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road. And I got to tell you, we have not experienced a lot in the way of rain over the last hour or so, but my photographer Dustin and I, we are really starting to feel the wind pick up pretty significantly over the last couple of minutes. And as conditions continue to worsen overnight, there is the anticipation that the Saluda River near Old Easley Road, near Highway 123, is going to reach major flood levels, dangerous levels, near record levels overnight. To that end, the American Red Cross has this shelter set up here. If you are concerned, you live in the area, you're worried about evacuating your home, you're worried about losing power, there is a safe place for you to stay here. There are cots, there are blankets, there are snacks, there's water for you here. Anyone who's concerned about being impacted by the storm, the American Red Cross has a place for you here. That is Crosswell First Baptist, again, off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road. We'll have much more coming up. But for now in Greenville, I'm Mark Whiteman, WYFF News 4.
Helene has officially made landfall in northwestern Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. We'll go over one more time exactly what we're expecting early tomorrow morning. Up next.
Local, breaking news. This is WYFF News 4 at 11.
And we continue our live team coverage tonight at 11:30, tracking the impacts of Hurricane Helene as the storm hits our region.
First, we go to meteorologist Griffin Hardy with the latest on the hurricane and where it is right now.
Well, right now, it has officially come ashore in northwestern Florida as a really strong Category 4 hurricane. This is absolutely lashing this part of the state with incredibly powerful winds. They've got an extreme wind warning in effect down there, but check out how fast it's moving. 24 miles per hour. That for a hurricane, yeah, that's very fast. And this means it's going to be very quickly making its way up into our neck of the woods into early tomorrow morning. That's when we're expecting the worst of the impacts to be. Again, the forecast track is pretty much on rails at this point. It's going to be heading straight north and then curving over towards the west by the time we get into tomorrow evening. It'll be moving very fast. Tropical storm warning in effect for the entirety of South Carolina and a good chunk of western North Carolina. Already, of course, we've seen some pretty substantial impacts out ahead of this storm, but the worst of the weather is still yet to come, of course. And we've been in most of the day a transition period where most of the weather has been sort of a combination of the stalled front and the hurricane. Now this is more direct impacts from the hurricane that we're seeing. The outer band starting to come into places like Abbeville and Greenwood, where this band here that's moving up on live Super Doppler 4 towards Anderson County, yeah, some pretty heavy rain starting to show up here as well. Same for western North Carolina, some bands of heavier rain here too, which is definitely not what we want. Flash flooding has been a huge issue across western North Carolina today. We've seen record amounts of rain already in Asheville. We've already broken the 3-day rainfall all-time record for Asheville Airport just for the past 24 to 36 hours. Pretty incredible stuff. Tornado watch continues as well for Greenwood, Lawrence, and Union counties until 8 a.m. tomorrow. So plan on the worst of the weather being around 6 to 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll show you the exact wind gusts we're expecting in our area one more time in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Griffin. Right now, power crews are out. They're working already in the upstate.
Rashad Williams is in Spartanburg County and has been with one crew as they work ahead of the storm. Rashad.
Yeah, one main crew, but several crews from Duke Energy that were working to cut down a tree. We showed you that in real time. So at this point, during the last half hour, we told you about an explosion that we heard and we felt right before you came out to us. I believe it was a transformer because the tree is now down, but crews repositioned. They've been working on trying to find the source of that. I'm joined now by Latron Ellis. Latron, you walked over, you just wanted to say what's up and see what was going on. Right. You heard that explosion too, just like we did. What did it feel and sound like?
Oh man, that was a scary sound right there, man. It kind of scared me a little bit, but it just, light just turned on and all the power came back on all of a sudden. And this is a bizarre thing I ever seen.
Right, and we heard it. We all ducked and jumped and looked at each other for cover. Okay, so we have a creek right over here, and you're from this area. Yeah. Describe to me what you're seeing, and our photographer Lauren is going to show you here. What does this creek look like? Is it normally like this? Is the water normally rushing this quick?
The water's never rushing this quick. It's always calm. It's always low. It's not even deep. It's only ankle deep. Kids play in this water all the time during the summer. Seeing it like this is blowing my mind right now. I mean, it's just, the current is coming super fast. Never seen it like that. And this is kind of like, it's a little scary a little bit. Seeing something like that just in the backyard like this. It just blows my mind.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time and appreciate you hanging out with us. Stay safe tonight. And you guys at home or wherever you're watching, make sure you stay safe as well. You can continue to find coverage with all of us here at WYFF News 4 as we work to bring you the best coverage.
Rashad, thank you. And speaking of staying safe, we are getting reports of storm damage in Anderson County. Our Maya Payton is joining us there now live.
Maya, what's going on?
Yes, Nigel and Carol, still here on Concord Avenue where a tree is making its way clear across the street. Now, earlier we were on the other side of the street, over where the tree, on the other side of the tree, rather. But the neighbor came out and told us that we were standing dangerously close to where another tree is leaning. And we thank that neighbor so that we're in a safer area right now. But that just speaks again to the danger. And clearly you wouldn't know how the that tree would look unless you are familiar with this area. We've noticed cars trying to come through this area as well, but knowing that it's blocked off, they've had to turn around or find an alternate route. Also want to speak up to the fact that we told you there were no street lights. Well, we were told by this neighbor that there is a street light, but it's under the tree. So he says that the fire department told them that they would try to make themselves out here a little later on in the night and hopefully can get this area cleaned up for them. Here in Anderson County, I'm Maya Payton, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Maya. Because of the rain we've already seen, many rivers in our area have high water levels right now.
We go to our Nate Stanley in Greenville, who's near Falls Park and the Reedy River. Nate.
And the river, as you can see behind me, continues to surge. Just a few minutes ago, we were on the opposite side of the Reedy River, but now we have made our way in front of it to just show you the amount of force that is coming from the rapids here as the rainwater continues to create this surge. This is right under the Liberty Bridge at Falls Park. This is where we have been all afternoon, and the longer we've been here, the more that we have seen this scene continue to increase in terms of water level, in terms of water power, and the wind too, as we can see with some of the water vapor as it's coming off of these rocks flowing out. It's starting to pick up too, that wind here. If you have been to the Falls Park, if you have been down by the Reedy River, you know this is a very drastic change from what we are used to. We will continue to be bringing you updates from here in downtown Greenville all night. Reporting in Greenville, Nate Stanley, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Nate.
And now we want to talk about storm shelters in our area tonight. Many of them are open over concerns from the storm and the possible flooding.
Yeah, let's check back in with Mark Whiteman at one of those shelters. Mark?
Yeah, hey, Nigel and Carol, you guys mentioned the potential flooding. The Saluda River is expected to get near record levels overnight. To that end, we are at Crosswell First Baptist. That's off Highway 123 and Fish Trap Road, very close to the Greenville-Pickens Speedway, where the American Red Cross has set up a temporary shelter. They will be here through the duration of the storm. If you are worried about where you are, if you feel you might need to evacuate your home due to flooding, due to electrical concerns, anything whatsoever, if you're looking for a safe place to stay tonight, the American Red Cross wants you to know there's a place for you here at Crosswell First Baptist. They have cots, they have blankets, they have snacks, they have water, a place for you to spend the night and ride out the storm if, again, you are worried about where you are. And it's not just for people in Greenville and Pickens County. Anyone concerned about the storm can make their way here. Just be advised, obviously, Old Easley Road, quite dark, quite dim, dangerous in that area. We did experience some ponding, so if you're coming out this way, stay vigilant. The American Red Cross wants you to know there is a place for you here. Stay with the WYFF News 4 team as we work to keep you informed. But for now in Greenville, I'm Mark Whiteman, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Mark. Hurricane Helene, of course, making landfall in the panhandle of Florida. Let's take you to the opposite end of the state. This is a live look at Key West, Florida. This speaks to the breadth and the width of that storm. Rough seas down in Key West as well.
All right, let's get another look at Helene before you go to bed tonight. We've got it now ashore in northwestern Florida, absolutely lashing this part of the state with extremely strong winds on the order of 140 miles per hour. That's the maximum sustained winds right now, moving very quickly to the north-northeast at 24 miles per hour. It is going to go from here to northeast Georgia in a really short amount of time, relatively speaking, that is. And the forecast track is still expected to take it right through the central, really the spine of Georgia. And the impacts from the storm, of course, extend way beyond the actual cone into our area, so much so that it's already in progress. Across a good chunk of the Midlands and the Low Country, there's a tornado watch in effect, and that does include our eastern counties, namely Greenwood, Lawrence, and Union counties. That's where the tornado parameters, that's the western edge of where we really have them. Our biggest concern is, of course, flooding. It already has been, but mostly from the strong straight line winds, just because of how close the center of the storm is going to pass. This curtain of rain extends from the hurricane all the way up into the Ohio Valley. Zooming in a little bit closer, you see the actual outer bands from the storm are now starting to make their way into the area. For most of the day today, it's been a combination of both the stalled front and the hurricane that's produced a lot of this weather. Now it's more direct impacts from the hurricane. The winds are starting to pick up a little bit more. And yeah, on live Super Doppler 4, those bands are starting to take a bit more shape, so to speak. Some pretty heavy rain coming into Anderson County right now, moving up towards the northwest pretty fast up towards the I-85 corridor. Man, Western North Carolina, you guys have not had a break all day today. Check out all of these flash flood warnings that are pretty much going to be in effect until further notice, until all of this drains out. Speaking of drain out, the French Broad River is set to reach record high, all-time record high crests over the next couple of days as all of this drains into the valleys. So with all this, only head out if it's an emergency at this point, because just look at all these flash flood warnings. We have standing water all over our viewing area at this point, so it's best that you just stay home and wait for the storm to pass. I think by the time you get to really 11 a.m. tomorrow to noon tomorrow, most of this should be on its way out of here, but rainfall totals have just been exceptional, and this is before the actual brunt of the storm gets here. Wind speeds right now up to around 10 to 15 miles per hour. The gusts at this point are up to around 20 to 25 miles per hour, so we're not quite into tropical storm territory yet, but we're likely to get there starting, I think, at around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning is when most of these winds should really start to pick up speed, that's for sure. And the worst of those wind speeds will come in around 6 to 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. That hasn't shifted all that much. Still expecting the absolute worst of the weather to be right at around sunrise early tomorrow morning. And look how close that center of the storm is going to be passing. It could be, the eye of the storm could be passing right through Stevens and Franklin counties over towards Toccoa and Hartwell. That's why we're seeing these 80-mile-per-hour gusts potentially over towards Elberton and Abbeville. It's a really noteworthy risk of power outages. Here's a look at our power outage risk map. This is just accounting for how strong the gusts are going to be. That's going to be somewhere between high and very high over towards Hart County, Elbert County. This is why we've stressed the need for an emergency supply kit. It's just more than anything else, you want to make sure that by now that you have some extra gas in the car, some cash on hand, things like that as Helene makes its way inland. But here's the good news. This is going to be a relatively short-lived storm. For most of the morning tomorrow, yeah, the weather's going to be terrible. But by the time you get to 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, that big shield of really intense heavy rain and strong winds will be shifting its way northward past Western North Carolina by the time we get to 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And then by the afternoon, the dry slot kicks in and we actually get some sunshine in the afternoon. So very dramatically, the weather's going to be shifting. But for tomorrow morning, don't go out unless you absolutely have to. Definitely an alert day for tomorrow. Then the sunshine hangs around for the rest of the weekend and temperatures look to, thankfully, stay comfortable in the mid to upper 70s. And luckily, it's quiet weather heading into the rest of next week as well. We'll keep you posted on in the event of any possible tornado warnings as they're issued, and be sure to stay tuned right here on WYFF News 4.
Griffin, thank you very much. Right now, power crews are out and working around the upstate.
Now, our Rashad Williams has been in Spartanburg County. He's been with one crew as they work ahead of the storm. Rashad, is this typical for these crews?
It is typical. We got to see a night in the life of Duke Energy members. One of the crew members actually just came over to make sure that we were okay. He addressed that explosion that I mentioned that we heard earlier. I thought maybe it was a transformer, but he clarified. He said it was a bad power line and that they're expecting a lot more explosions or bad power lines or the unforeseen that they are expecting because they had a heads up throughout the week. Our meteorologists staying on top of letting everyone know what's expected to come our way. So Vanderbilt Road is now back open. That was closed for about an hour and a half as crews worked to cut limbs off of a tree. First cut limbs, and then they eventually chopped the entire tree down. The tree was leaning, and they feared that the tree would fall on the power lines. There's another tree that they were working on that they were monitoring as well. So we'll continue to bring you the latest coverage as Helene makes its way to the upstate and our region. Back to you.
Down trees and damage. In Anderson County, I'm Maya Payton. I'll give you a closer look coming up.
Continuing coverage of our breaking news as we track Hurricane Helene. We are starting to see storm damage in the upstate.
Power crews are also out at work already. Our Maya Payton is in Anderson County. And Maya, you've seen both crews headed out and some damage like right behind you.
Yes, this damage right here behind me, Nigel, here on Concord Avenue, a massive tree uplifted at its roots. Can't get back there right now, but it starts I'd say maybe like 4 feet away and then clear across the street. I'm going to walk with you so that you can see how massive this tree is. Clearly, we're limited light-wise because I'm told by neighbors that a light pole that usually sits right here where this tree is currently standing along, this tree knocked it down, right? So it's laying up under here. But this will just show you how massive this tree is. And like the neighbors were telling me, when it fell, came at a moment's notice without warning. That's how these trees are, especially when you're dealing with a lot of wind, saturated grounds. You never know when a tree may fall. So make sure you stay inside, you guys, and I hope you have a safe night. In Anderson County, I'm Maya Payton, WYFF News 4.
Wow, Maya, some pretty striking images there, and there's another striking image for you. Helene now ashore in northwestern Florida. One final look at what to expect when we come back. Okay, one final look at Helene before we sign off for tonight. Helene has now officially made landfall in northwestern Florida, moving very fast at 24 miles per hour. Still a Category 4 hurricane. Really impressive stuff here. The amount of rain that we've seen thus far has already been really impressive, even though it's not totally related to the hurricane. Now it's transitioning to where, we're getting impacts from the hurricane itself. All these outer bands starting to really come into the upstate. Tornado watch still in effect for the Midlands and Union, Lawrence, and Greenwood counties until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. We can't rule it out. Doesn't look too likely. It mostly just looks like rain and wind for a lot of us, but be on the lookout for that in the eastern half of the area. Heavier bands of rain starting to show up on live Super Doppler 4 coming up from the southeast. Already a ton of flash flood warnings in place now until probably late tomorrow morning, early tomorrow afternoon. Probably not a good idea to be out in the roadways unless it is absolutely an emergency. Tons of flash flood warnings in the upstate as well, so please be safe. Please be careful out there. Wind gusts already starting to pick up to 20 to 25 miles per hour. Again, the worst of the weather looks to be from around 4 a.m. to around 8 to 9 a.m. tomorrow. That's when the rain and the wind will be at its absolute worst. Good news is by the time we get to 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, it's starting to wind down, and by the afternoon, we may even see some pockets of sunshine. So one half of a day to get through, and then we're in the clear for the most part. Alert day tomorrow once we get past Helene impacts, and then it's sunshine heading into the weekend. Carol and Nigel, over to you.
All right, Griffin, thank you for watching our extended coverage of Hurricane Helene at 11. We will have continuing coverage throughout the night and all day tomorrow.
Remember, you can always turn to WYFF4.com and our mobile app. There you can find the latest track, models, and rain total predictions from our weather team.
Be safe.